Good evening and welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host. Tonight's topic's a little bit different than the usual. An observation about the world that we're all living in today, as well as censorship and how that fits in there. And third, explore the possibility that our society has narcissistic/psychopathic roots. We will begin with a story. Use your imagination and picture the following. Imagine that you are an empathic lady who feels guilt and remorse when doing wrong things and has emotions. You become somehow married to a very rich man, and because he's so rich and old-fashioned, you don't even have to work. You may even express an interest in working and being told,
"Oh, honey, that's silly. There's no need for you to work. Just stay here and tend to the gardens,"
or whatever the case may be. So you feel special that you don't have to work and you've got this beautiful palace. However, you find that you spend your days in that home alone because the husband is out making the money. Also, because he's so rich, he's kind of like a local celebrity. Let's say you have a television. You switch to a cable news station, different from the usual local fare, and you happen to see your beloved husband involved in some kind of scandal. His face plastered all over news. Says your husband was involved in some kind of crime, and you sit there and think, well, I'm his wife. I don't know about any crime. Well, then he comes home, and you naturally approach him and say,
"Hey, I saw this thing on the news. You were involved in what's going on?"
And the response is,
"Oh, you shouldn't be watching such things. That is not true. That's all a misunderstanding. You shouldn't even pay attention to that."
And that doesn't really help you. But you think, oh, that's a relief. I thought I was married to a creature for a moment. And then another day, you've been given a cell phone so you can speak with your husband at regular intervals, even though he's busy all the time. There's a regular house phone too, but he's given you this special little smartphone so you two could speak together easily. You find some features on your phone that allow you to search out certain information that is interesting, not everyday stuff. So you decide to use that application in the cell phone. You uncover all kinds of documents about this same husband and horrific things it says he's done. You're thinking to yourself, it's a misunderstanding? Sure. What's all this? So you start to wonder if maybe you're involved with a creature or a con artist of some kind. Because he's so wealthy, there's also a maid to take care of the chores daily, which leaves you very bored. And you decide to strike up a conversation with it. And the maid is very standoffish, flips the other way and acts kind of goofy and leaves the room. And you chase her down and say,
Hey, what's the matter?
And she says something to you like,
"I'm surprised you're even speaking to me. Well, your husband's told me how you have such low regard for us workers."
Which is something you've never said. And you say,
"Are you kidding? He said that?"
And then it's not very long before the two of you end up speaking together and figure out that the husband clearly made up the story, and you show her or tell the maid something to indicate that you're sincere. You're not trying to play a game. So the maid then tells you some things, and you ask, like,
"What do you know about my husband? Is he a celebrity? Is he famous? I've been seeing him on this and that."
And she is quite an authority on him and goes on and on about,
"Oh, you have no idea who you're married to. Let's start here."
She goes down a whole list of all kinds of horrific things that anyone, upon hearing, would think, I don't want to be with this person if they were married to them. But remember, it's a fancy house, rich, lots of money, wealth and beauty, jewels and fake stuff. With some of the stories you've heard about, you ask the maid.
Like, I saw the story that said that this particular scandal happened.
You hear another viewpoint.
"Oh, yes, he's a scam artist. Oh, he's awful. He's this, he's that."
You hear all these things from all these different places. Your husband comes home one evening, and you've kept this all to yourself up to this point. But you decide to say,
"Hey, honey, can we have a discussion?"
Then you start to ask about a different scandal, and the husband says,
"You shouldn't be watching those cable news channels. I told you those stories are fabricated. Yeah, they're all fake. They're not telling the truth."
This kind of bothers you because you've already figured there's something up. You just don't know what it is. You approach him and you tell him what you saw on the cable news station. You've told him about your research on your smartphone and how it told you a wonderful group of stories that you would never hear of otherwise. And then you mention,
I also talked to Helga, and she even knows about these things. Why are you telling me that they're all not real?
Then the next week, you decide to go check out that cable station again to see if there's a new story. To your amazement, it's gone. All you have are local, ridiculous channels. No cable ones. Next, you figure, well, maybe I could find out some information about this story. And you pull out your phone, and strangely, the internet abilities are gone. You have no connection. No matter what you click or press, there's no connection. You decide you'll go tell this all to the maid. So you run down the steps trying to find the maid, and she's not there. You call your husband on your special cell phone and say,
I can't find Helga. Where's Helga?
and he says,
Oh, I had to let Helga go. She was stealing from our home. She's not anyone we want to be associated with.
so what's happened here? You've been obviously a victim of some form of abuse, dishonesty from a con artist, and you are a human being who has your own set of values, likes, dislikes, personality traits, and importance. So naturally, if this is your spouse and you're hearing these strange things, it's not like you went looking for them initially. They just popped up and then you started looking later because anybody would. And you've found specific outlets that have helped enlighten you as far as the story going on that you're directly involved in. And systematically, every single thing was shut off. You lost the special cable access, your phone quit having internet activity available, and the maid was strangely dismissed without even you seeing it. But what's happened here is control. This man, who's the spouse, clearly feels entitled to do whatever business dealings he's doing that are shady, that are constantly shown in different news feeds. But the wife, who has every right to know, which is you, asks,
What's going on? Are you really involved in a scandal?
and you're told no. And if you question further,
He then says,
down the list,
Honey, first of all, I told you, those cable news stations are no good. It's not true what they say. Second, you shouldn't be using that application on your phone. I had it disconnected because you have no business looking into that type of information. It, as well, is not right. Third, Helga. You had no business talking to her. She's a cheap whore. She stole my fancy silverware collection, and she has no business in this house. Don't listen to a word she said. She's lying.
okay, the story's over. What was the purpose of the story? The idea is to take this story and transfer it over to the society that we live in today, where we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got mainstream news channels showing various stories about specific things. We also have a knowledge that it's very possible that every single thing on that screen is phony, since Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act back in 2012, which allows our government to supply our media with fake stories, propaganda, like they would typically normally do before the 40s, where they would spread false information to other countries about this or that. But when they did it to us, we didn't like it, so they made it illegal. Well, then stories come up. We have brilliant previous attorney generals who actually state that people need to be brainwashed.
Is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
And just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Now, the purpose of propaganda is to basically manipulate people, kind of like the Narcopath does, or the Narcissist or Cluster B creature does. They give you specific information designed to steer your brain into a certain direction that they wish you to be in, whether the story's true or not. And after this repeal of the Smith-Mundt Act, all of a sudden, school and mass shootings were the new in thing. They were happening regularly. In fact, the most ever in Obama's term, well, because he repealed it during his term. These events, whether real or fake, are put on the television for hours. And like Eric Holder said, we've got to really brainwash people. Let's not just put an ad on. He probably didn't want to say, let's stage a fake event and put it on TV and show the aftermath. That'll get people. But regardless, that's what we're subjected to. And in many of these cases, these things are proven to be phony. They're fake. Yet the news stations still refer to them anytime there's a new mass event. They rehash a list of the old ones. Let's say that you realize that one of these is not real. Well, then you represent the wife in the story. You are questioning what you're being told because you have all these different areas that suggest that you're on the right track. But those areas have been shut down. You want to step forward and say, hey, I know this shooting that you talked about isn't real because I happen to know this. And guess what happens to you? You are censored now. So like the husband who's rich and he's up to no good, obviously, but he doesn't want the wife to know, he simply cuts off her resources, doesn't let her make her opinions known, and tells her she's wrong. That's what I'm seeing with the censorship of today, where channels with hundreds of thousands and millions of subscribers are just vanishing because, if we go back to the story, they would be representative of bystanders who've stepped forward to the press to say,
I know that man that she's married to, and he's a criminal crook.
That person will be labeled as giving hate speech and silenced. But she's telling the truth. That's why we've been saying truth is the new hate speech. But there are powers that shouldn't be in charge of social media platforms, treating it as if they are publishers now, where if they don't agree with the content of something that doesn't fit with their narrative, then they will just take it off and remove it and say blank you to all the subscribers who want to see the content, as if they have any place making such decisions on what other people can see. But I see it with other politicians, like with that Hillary Clinton, when she would be like on television.
I did not have any classified anything.
And then we find out there were hundreds and thousands of them, and yet she...
Oh, the department of whoever has them.
That is an example of a real-life psychopath. Think of what she's done and look at how she responds to it. Never takes accountability for any of it. Blames others for all of the situations that occurred. It's the Russians, so the Russians did it. She's the only one colluding with them. But that's another psychopathic or narcissistic trait we see among our would-be leaders and people in high places. And we do have people stepping forward with details about specific information that is not made well known to the control of the corporate media. Those get shut down too. It's as if there's some policeman deciding what people will and will not see. My theory always was, when they claim something's a conspiracy theory or whatever, I'll think, well, if it's that goofy and it's so stupid, then just let it run and let it speak for itself about how retarded it is. But no, they don't do that. They want to remove it, which gives it more credibility. Go figure. So just like the husband in the story, our corporate media wants to control narratives. And I noticed how on specific platforms that show videos, people often want to see the coverage, which is kind of like a host watching a news program showing a particular story and commenting on it. But you find, strangely, those are removed, especially if they disagree with the official story that's usually fake. And instead you see counterfeit news network, nothing but crap. Fox, Devil 666, and so on, and you get the narrative, however slightly altered to maintain division amongst the people. That's the version they want you to hear. And I think of things like that Jesse Smollett story and think, well, what if I was his neighbor? And when that story came out that he was the victim of this horrific crime, I happened to live next door and happened to have overheard him talking with these thugs that were to stage this whole thing, and it wasn't real. I would be labeled a crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist and silenced immediately. Yet the corporate creatures control the narrative, and they're the ones who brought it to our attention that it was fake. So they want to be the ones who dictate what's real and fake. The point of this whole presentation is to indicate how those at the top appear to have psychopathic or sociopathic, narcissistic type characteristics, and they're the ones leading things. When they're caught in lies, they never come back and say, oh, I owe you all an apology, even though Hillary's husband Bill did that, but he was lying too.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
Plus, he says he didn't inhale, which is a joke. The point is, it's lies. It's being told to us, and we're like that little wife who deserves to know what's really going on because we make decisions based on the information we know. So, for example, if we're told some particular politician is great and the one to vote for, and we're given all these reasons, well, that could influence our decision to vote for that person. However, if the person's a wicked witch in private, does horrific things, murders people, keeps it a secret, we wouldn't want to vote for such a witch. A lot of what we see in today's media is all deliberate manipulation, just like little kids on the playground. If Susie doesn't want Johnny to look at Tamika, he might look at what Johnny likes, and let's say Johnny likes the Red Hot Chili Peppers, well, he might say, oh, Tamika can't stand the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that'll cause division among them. It sounds the same with our media, and that, of course, is a very crude example, but hopefully you get the idea. It's like turning one group against another. It maintains division and keeps our minds off of more important things like how taxation is theft and how the Federal Reserve isn't federal and there's no reserve. The list goes on. So I've made these observations and realized the kind of place we live in, and it's right up the alley of the experiences I've had with the evil people. And you may be out there asking, well, what good does it do to discuss something like that if that candidate really is an evil witch that murders? What good is it going to do if you can't prove it and she's not going to admit it? You can't change it. Well, the idea isn't to change anything. The idea, I believe, is to just be as informed as possible so you can make the best decision for yourself. Like with the cluster B creature, before you realize you're being used, you will be led to believe certain things and you will have no reason to question them, just like a majority of people that watch the mainstream news. They just assume, like I used to, oh, it's true. If it's on the TV, they're not going to waste time giving a fake story. Yes, they are. So we can't really be expected to change anything. We can try to bring awareness to certain things, but we'll just be attacked and labeled with one of the names they come up with, conspiracy theorist, which is ridiculous because life is full of conspiracies, which simply means two or more people engaging in some kind of activity that's illegal, harmful, or both. A theorist is pretty much a neutral term. Somebody who makes theories, typically they take the facts and the information, put it together, and if they're being told a different story and they're looking at the details, they simply notice discrepancies. But those discrepancies are not to be questioned in many cases, which indicates a psychopathic root of all this, because we should be encouraged. What if somebody discovered Smollett before they decided to announce it and saved future frauds from occurring or something? They'd be a hero, but no, the narrative is controlled, so if somebody is lying and it's meant to be known, it'll be on their terms. But as long as you're aware of this, it can help you before you decide to feel really emotional about the next mass event murders that occurs that sounds horrific, and realize it may just be another one of their propaganda pieces designed to turn you against your constitutional rights. They don't realize, though, that with all these random events, it rather makes us think we'd be better off to be armed wherever we go in case one of these events happens that they plan. But they don't want that reaction. They want you to just disarm yourself because you'll be so much safer in a world where only criminals have guns.
Hi,
Good sexy evening to you.
I am the Narcopath, and I invite you to grab me by the pussy willow. Oh yes, I do, Daddy Hinkle.
My Franklin Miss Fabergé! Whatever, honey, I realize you probably have questions about what happened when our little arrangement ended. Well, if you must know, we were living together for several years. I was your lover, you were mine. And then I started being distant. You couldn't find me, like when you came home from work, I was already passed out in bed. When you got up in the morning, I was already gone. I did that for quite a while to prepare. And you started noticing I kept hanging around with a certain person who you were attracted to. I think you were jealous. But regardless, I did what I had to do. If you need to know the truth now that I'm giving confessions, the fact was I cannot be alone. I knew it wasn't going to work out with you because you knew too much about me and I couldn't take it, which means I had to find a new one. And I found a new one, and I kind of overlapped it, and you picked up on it. But of course, when you started pointing out that I was always hanging out with this new person I never had before in all the other years, I just told you you were paranoid.
Nothing's going on, we're just friends. Oh, he has a lover. I'm not his type.
All the stuff we made up. The truth was, we were doing it. We did it in your bed. We did it in his lover's bed. We did it everywhere. But just so you know, I don't know how to end things. I know how to start them. If I have something going, I know how to just ignore it until it goes away. And that's what I did. I had somebody new. I didn't need you anymore. Never mind, I never discussed this with you. Who has time for that?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Because I wouldn't know what to say. The point was, I get what I want. You reached your expiration date, and I had somebody else who was fresh and new and didn't know all about my secrets yet. And that was perfect for me. So I had to let you go. I'm sure you can understand. Of course, the new one didn't work out either. What do I expect? He was seeing me behind his lover's back, too. We were birds of a feather, and we fought together. It didn't work out either. But the next one, I'll just be a little bit more secretive with. I have to hide just a little bit more of myself, and then it's gonna work. I just know it, I can feel it. Wish me luck. If you don't wish me luck with my new lover, then you are just jealous and hateful. I don't need you.